No kiss on the cheek before walking away, no hug of farewell, no words left to say. She wanted to hold him and never let go, to tell him she's sorry and loves him, but no. He'd stared straight ahead as he'd shut the car door and driven away without a word more. She'd turned and she'd wiped some grit from her eye, while the moon up above saw straight through her lie.
He fumbled his way back in through the door, the same door they'd left through an hour before. The cold and the crisp and the wintry sun had taken a bow now the night had begun. He tore off his gloves and his hat and his scarf and sat in his seat with his feet by the hearth, then gazed at the place where an hour before she'd sat her last sit and would sit there no more. He stared at the window but couldn't see past. The velvety night pressed against the cold glass. He watched as the raindrops rolled down the pane and winced as he felt the tears building again. Threatening to spill and to roll down his cheek, he opted to snarl to hide he was weak. He breathed deep and curled up while high in the sky, the moon up above saw straight through his lie.
Her train made good time, but she'd noticed not the passage of time or the tight little knot that dwelt deep inside her and prodded and poked, that niggled and fizzled, made her wish she still smoked. That thing she ignored that she'd not given name, that tight little knot remained there just the same. Just one change to make on her long journey west, to a life she'd once had with her makeup a mess.
He sat in his seat whilst his mind was elsewhere. He floundered and wallowed in morbid despair. He tried hard to focus on all that was bad, for fear that the good thoughts would make him feel sad. He thought of the sulking and fighting and tears, getting more frequent with passage of years. He thought that he hated her, hoped that she'd die, though the moon up above saw straight through that lie.
Time to kill, time to dwell, time to try not to think. As she sat in the cafe not drinking a drink, she fumbled about in her purse for her phone and looked at the screen and let out a groan. 0 missed calls, no message unread. All he'd to say, he plainly now said. She was glad he'd not called, she wasn't surprised, but the moon up above saw straight through her lies.
A man is a man and a man will be man, so he went to the fridge and cracked open a can, then slipped on his slippers and flopped himself down, flicking through channels and wearing a frown. Hunger, that's it, that's the pain in his belly. He picked up his phone and he turned off the telly. He'd order a curry be brought to his door, then drink enough beer so he'd miss her no more. The screen on his phone faded from black to reveal that face staring straight back. The face of a woman now far, far away. He'd changed that bloody picture, though just not today. 0 missed calls, no message unread. All she'd to say, she'd plainly now said. He'd delete her tomorrow from phone and life too, but the moon up above knew that that wasn't true.
Each side of the platform, a train on each track, one taking her forward and one going back, to the life she'd messed up and the man that she'd hurt. She took a deep breath and she straightened her skirt. She shook her head clear, her choice had been made. The pain and the hurt would eventually fade. She'd spoiled it all now, but she would remain strong, though the moon up above knew in this she was wrong.
Nothing on telly, he grabbed the remote as the voice on the box urged him to vote for whichever of the singers had hurt his ears least. He clicked the red button to make the voice cease. Then he looked once again at the face on the phone and hoped that he'd make it now he was alone. He'd be fine, he was sure, no need to worry. It'll be alright, now where's my curry?
She stepped from the train, there was no turning back, and set off with her suitcase that clickety-clacked. As it rolled and it bounced along right behind the hurrying woman with taxi to find. She shook her head clear, her choice had been made, but it wasn't her choice, if it were she'd have stayed. Curled up in a ball on the seat right beside the man she betrayed, and she finally cried.
He stood by the door to the little backyard, smoking and drinking and trying so hard to think about nothing, to breathe and relax, to think of the future, not dwell on the past. If only he'd known the last kiss that they'd had, before his whole world had turned out so bad, was the last kiss forever and soon she'd be gone. He'd still hold her tight and the kiss would go on.
The taxi pulled up at the end of the street from the past that now greeted her feet. She counted the coins into the chubby hand of the driver who'd driven, who chatted and had told her a story all about how a football team had wowed a crowd. She thanked him and turned, took a mirror from her purse, glanced at herself, she'd never looked worse.
He could hold it no longer, that last beer wanted out, so he nipped to the toilet at just about the same time that the finger had pressed the doorbell. He'd only just started, oh bloody hell. He called through the house, yes, just a tick, dashing downstairs and replacing his dick. I'm sure you lot watch until we're indisposed, he moaned as he finished straightening his clothes. He opened the door to the man with a smile that had brought his hot food over many a mile. He tipped him and thanked him and bid him goodbye, then hurried indoors with a tear in his eye. He'd taken the bags and realised what he'd done, a meal for two instead of for one. He looked at the space on the seat right beside his place on the couch and he finally cried.
The smile of the man as they passed in the street went unnoticed by her as she stared at her feet. The door from the past now barring her way, she realised she had no idea what she'd say. She made a mistake and this was the end of the life that she'd broken and just couldn't mend. So now in the cold and the dark she was stood, chewing her lip like a cow would its cud.
His appetite lost, he grabbed coat and hat, and his keys and his phone and the money that, if he rushed down the street to the pub on the corner, he could turn into beer to supply tears to mourner, and help him to sleep when the time to sleep came. If he drank enough maybe he'd forget her name. The future starts here, as is always the way. A new year of your life starts every new day.
A check of the mirror and lick of the lips, she straightened her skirt over her hips. She reached for the doorbell, the time had now come. She'd made her mistakes, what's done had been done. She, just like we, couldn't alter what's been. It's time to move forward, see what's to be seen. The future starts here, as is always the way. A new year of your life will start every day.
With a coat on his back and an hat on his head, he went through the back door to the passage that led past the bins where he dumped the two big bags of food and into the street where the wind matched his mood. Biting and chilly and harsh and so bleak, and bringing forth tears that stung at his cheek, he turned up his collar, tipped forward his head, and wished he'd gone to bed instead.
It wasn't the plan, it shouldn't be so. She travelled so far and he wasn't home. She pressed and pressed and pressed once again, but no sign of life came from within. This house from her past with her future behind, where no lights were lit behind the blinds, while high up above the big moon did look down and think,
Pretty girl, why not just turn around?
She'd made a mistake, what had she done? Thrown everything away on some meaningless fun. She shouldn't have come here, it just wasn't right, so she stepped from the porch into silvery moonlight. Oh, did she say after turning away from the door to the street where blocking her way stood a man in a hat and a coat and who smiled despite tears and she smiled too.
They fumbled their way back in through the door, the same door they'd left through some hours before. The door to the future they knew would be hard. Sit down, he called out as he dashed to the yard. No talking that night, they'd no need to hurry, curled up and enjoying their microwave curry. What's done is done, the past set in stone, but the future's a tapestry still being sewn.
Each side of the platform, a train on each track, one taking her forward and one going back to the life that she'd messed up.
I will smash your face into pieces if you fuck that line up again.